So yesterday I met with a client of mine, and one of the things that he's dealing with is having some confusion or lack of clarity around making some big decisions in his life. And he has decisions he needs to make, big ones, in actually a few buckets of his life all at the same time. And I'm going to share with you here today what I shared with him. It's a decision-making matrix or framework that I first read about. I believe it was in a book called The Millionaire Fastlane. Right off the top of my head, I forget the name of the author, but The Millionaire Fastlane is a book that I read many, many years ago, and I think I've reread twice since. It's a really good book. Very tactical when it comes to business frameworks and such. So if business is something that you're trying to work on, that could possibly be a good book for you. Anyway, so the framework is such. On a scale of, there's two things you have to evaluate. First thing, on a scale of 0 to 10, 1 to 10, what is the potential upside / positive outcome played out to its best potential scenario if you do this thing? So let's say 1 is the maximum best possible upside is very small, right? 10, so 1 would be you barely feel the upside in your life. 10 would be absolutely changes your whole life, catapults you into a whole different level of living, just a total elevation of the whole game, right? And in the most positive sense. Now, the other spectrum that you have to evaluate on a scale of 1 to 10 is if this were to go wrong, bad, go downhill, if this was a mistake, and it played out to its ultimate worst possibility, how bad could bad be? 1 being, I'd barely feel it, I could rebound and recover from it pretty quickly. 5 being, it'd be bad, but I could rebuild and rebound without totally damaging my life forever. And 10 being catastrophic. Played out to its worst possible scenario. If it went that route, after making that decision or doing that thing, if it played out to its worst case scenario, catastrophic. Okay. So what I shared with my client, what I'm going to share here with you is, one of the things that he's considering is moving to a completely different state and city. And the way you evaluate this is on a scale of 1 to 10 for the positive, right? How life-changing could this be if the upside maxed out? And let's say hypothetically, in this example from my client who's considering moving to a completely different state and city, let's just say that the potential positive impact played out to the maximum level, let's say it's 8, just hypothetically. And let's say that the worst case scenario played out to its worst case conclusion in this specific hypothetical decision of moving to a different city and state, let's say is a 4. So what I shared with him is, in this scenario, you're risking a 4 bad for a potential 8 positive. And the way I approach this is, I want to be, as much as possible, I want to be risking things that are less than 5 bad, so -5, so 4, 3, 2, 1 potential bad, while looking for upside that is 5 plus, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And how you evaluate the positive upside on a scale of 1 to 10 is subjective and qualitative to your life and the factors and variables, obviously. So is the downside, right? But what you do is you think through all the factors, good and bad. And by the way, side note, we so often only look at the good. Very rarely do we ever consider the downside, the risk, the bad. In general, most men that I come across suck at assessing the risk of things in life. We only see the positive. It's like this whole positive mindset attitude in self-help type stuff, which is important to have a positive mindset. But we seem to forget that you have to have accurate assessment of opportunities, situations, and part of the accurate assessment of things is to understand what the downside and risk is. And it seems like nobody ever teaches anybody how to do that, or nobody seems to care about it. Everything's just, pink colored sunglasses. It's all peaches and cream. It's all roses. No, as we all know, there can be downside too. And what I explained to him is, I would be hard pressed to ever imagine a situation where I risk something over 5 bad, so let's say 6 bad, potential played out to its worst being a 6, for something that's less than a 5 good, right? 4. That just makes no sense. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so if you're ever struggling with and lacking clarity on how to make that decision, do a very realistic, thorough, to the best of your ability, honest assessment of the positive potential upside played out to its best and the negative risk downside potential played out to its worst. Anytime for me, anytime I come across something that's a 3 or less negative and a 7 plus positive, that is an automatic yes. Do you get what I'm saying? If it's less than 3 negative, 3, 2, 1 score of negative downside, and has a positive maximum score of 7 or higher, 7, 8, 9, 10, you're risking very little for a lot. You're not going to come across many of these kinds of situations usually in life. When you do, that's an automatic yes. Up to you what you want to do where things move a little bit closer together in the middle, right? Will you risk a 5 for a 7? Maybe, The one funky little, and I'm probably, the other day I was noodling on this very matrix and I was starting to come up with actually a quadrant for it. And I actually might sit down and finish thinking that through and coming up with a nifty little quadrant tool for this and doing a second video about this topic for you guys. But the one area that I myself have played in quite a few times in life is risking something over 5 negative for something that's 9 or 10 positive. Now, I don't advise people to do that. Risk tolerance is different for different people. It's like, what do they say about when in the investment financial industry, risk assessment, risk profile, different clients have different kinds of risk profiles and willingness to take risk, right? I'm the kind of guy that I'm willing to go for gold. I'm willing to play winner take all. I do believe that, as the saying goes, I do believe that the world favors the bold. But being bold is also not for the faint of heart. And I have paid dearly many times too, where the 10 or 9 positive didn't land, but the 7 or 8 negative, it did. Yikes. I turned that into a learning lesson, many, many lessons. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, as they say, right? Stronger, wiser, sharper, faster. And I fortunately have been able to parlay quite a few of my negative 7s and 8s in my life into positives, or build on them and turn them into something. But what I just want to say is, there will be many moments in your life, I think, as men, if you're ambitious, growth-oriented, entrepreneurial, going after things, where you're going to be faced with an opportunity to risk 7 or more negative, but the positive is 9 or 10. And I'm going to think through in another video how to best address that. But in my mind right now, the way I think of it is, it's a gamble, and you just got to be willing to go for it if that's in your DNA, to take those kinds of risks, But in general, what you want to do is, anytime something is a positive potential lower than 5 with a negative potential higher than 5, that's an easy no. A negative 4 or 5 for a positive 5 or 6 is like, is it worth it? So that's just for you to kind of assess and decide. And if it's a negative 3, 4 or less, 4, 3 negative less with like a 7, 3 negative less or with a 7 positive potential, that's an automatic yes. And that's really where you want to try to put your life as much as possible, is making decisions that are 3 or less on the negative side and 7 plus on the positive side. That's what you really want to shoot for most of the time. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. You with me? So, what's going on with my eye today? It was really windy out there today. Anyway, so anytime you got a decision, just, draw 2 lines, positive for the negative, map, put in some like little mini lines for 1 through 10, 1 through 10. And then, next to the positive line, just write out all the factors that would lend to it being positive. And what does that picture look like played out to its perfect outcome? Now, be honest about all the negative potential things that could happen. Write those out. What would that look like at its worst case scenario? Then look at the positive picture and just honestly assess how big of a positive impact could that have on your life, 1 to 10. Circle that number. Then look at, all right, if nothing positive happened and this played out to its absolute worst possible catastrophic scenario, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad would that be for my life? The way I think about bad is, how hard would it be to recover and bounce back from it? And I then do a very honest, sober, realistic assessment of that, and I circle the number on the negative line. And that tells me. It at least can give me at the very least can give you a very clear yes or no, right? If it's somewhere closer in the middle, or it might be a gamble, that's for you to decide. But so often with this matrix, I can get a very clear yes or no right away, right? If it's a low positive with a high negative, I'm out. High positive, low negative, I'm in. So try this out. Maybe there's been some decisions you've been thinking about making. Do this as an exercise on a piece of paper and see if it doesn't actually give you some pretty startling clarity on yay or nay.